Hey everybody, welcome back to Chortle Cast. I'm one of your hosts, Jake, and with me as always, the Stream King, Far Cry Guy, the man who may cry devil, the King of Thieves, and L'Assassin, Steven. How you doing?
I thought we were retiring Man Who May Cry Devil. I beat that game.
You know what, Steven? I give you a new title every time you beat a game. Technically, you should have given me a title because I just beat The Last of Us for a forward compatible review. So, you could call me the Flying Joel.
Yeah, that's a good one. The Flying Joel or the Flying Dad.
The Fly Dad?
The Flying Dad, because Joel's like the dad.
He's the dad, yeah.
I'll think on it.
Okay.
Try to come up with something that has to do with when you were transported to heaven very briefly.
And of course, if you don't know what we're talking about, we are talking about The Last of Us full playthrough that we did for Forward Compatible. If you don't know, Forward Compatible is a review series that we do where we take a game that we haven't played in at least 5 years and we see if it's forward compatible with who we are today. Part of the way that all works, we do a preview event where we talk about what do we remember before we played the game. Then we live stream the whole game for you. Normally that takes place over a month. But for Last of Us, I actually was the one playing, and I'm going to be doing the voiceover for the review. And a lot of the review is my thoughts, my jumbled thoughts put beautifully to paper by Steven. I had to play the game like I did originally, which is all in one sitting. So we did a full live stream playthrough this weekend. It started Friday night. I think on YouTube there are 3 parts, and I need to go organize those into a playlist. I'll do that right after I finish filming this podcast. So if you're listening, you can go find this. But we had one stream that was like 9 hours long. So it was a long stream, but we had a great time. It was a lot of fun. Brody showed up at the very end. I think he sat through the end with us, so
He did.
He made it right for the end, just to see the end of the game there and touch base. So we had a great time. Thank you to those of you that tuned in. Some of you tuned in and stayed with us basically all Saturday. So that was a lot of fun.
I saw some new faces too.
Yeah,
that
new
was
faces.
Nice.
It was a great time. We had a blast. So anyway, we'll talk about our thoughts in the review. That'll probably be coming out not this week, but probably next week when it will release. My promise to you is that I'm going to get it out before Last of Us Part 2 comes out, because I do think it would be a fun thing to kind of watch and look over before you jump into the second game. So I know for me that was another reason why I wanted to do that game for this month, is I wanted a refresher and all this jazz. So anyway, that's available if you want to go watch the live streams. Feel free to comment on those, time code something, especially if you notice something and have a comment. We talk about this all the time, but with these reviews, we want to hear your thoughts. We want to hear your experiences playing the game, and if something if something touched you differently than it touched us in the live stream, comment that. Let us know, because we were dealing with a lot of technical issues that day anyway, so we were thrown off, and we still don't have context for the draft scene because Joel started flying. So we're
That was hilarious. Now whenever anyone's like top 10 emotional moments in video games, number 3, Giraffe and Ellie, I'll just be like, what are you talking about? That's the funniest video game scene I've ever seen in my entire life.
It's great times.
It was bad. It was pretty bad.
That's not what this show is about. This is Chortlecast, the official podcast of Chortle Games, where we talk about video games, TV shows, movies, anime, whatever the heck we want to talk about. And we got a great show for you this week. We're going to talk a lot about delays. There was supposed to be a lot of cool stuff that happened this week, but a lot of not cool stuff happened this week. So we postponed the cool stuff. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Destiny's first live event. And then we're also going to talk a little bit about Pokemon Sword and Shield DLC coming out very soon. But I think, actually, I told you this differently, Steven, but I do want to just go ahead and start with these delays. And I want to touch on just briefly what's been happening over the past week. For me personally, it's been disgusting. It's been hard to watch. Just not only the racism that's taking place in our country, which is just horrible. But also seeing the police brutality that's been happening and that's just flooding Twitter. I'm glad that I'm glad that people are starting to stand up and people are starting to do something. And I really do feel like true change is going to come out of this. And I'm excited for that. But I don't know. Black lives do matter, and all lives can't matter until Black lives matter as well. There's a lot of thoughts I have on it that we as a channel haven't really spoken out or said anything, but we definitely stand with the Black Lives Movement. At least I do. I don't know. I just wanted to say that and get that out there. I'm not very eloquent, and we're a channel that's all about fun, and we accept everyone, and we try not to dip into politics or religion too much. But anyway, I just wanted to say that and get that out there to lead into these event delays. So I think Sony was the first to delay the PS5 event. That was our title of the show last week. It was very exciting. We were very excited to finally see the first news about the PS5. And then all this political unrest had started happening, and all this movement had started, and long overdue for this movement to start. Sony basically came out and said, I want to get their quote just right, because a lot of people have talked about what they've said and just kind of what kind of statement is this really? But anyway, they said we have decided to postpone PlayStation's 5 event that was scheduled for June 4th. While we understand gamers worldwide are excited to see the PS5, we do not feel that right now is a time for celebration. And for now, we want to stand back and allow more important voices to be heard. So basically just, there are a lot of interesting, there are a lot of really important conversations happening right now. We don't want to step out in front of that and halt those conversations. We don't want to distract from the messages that are being said right now. And several companies, I'm going to circle back to Sony because, with them being the first, I think there's a lot of interesting things about that because they kind of set off a chain reaction. But Steven, I know you have some thoughts on Sony, so I do want to circle back to that. But just to kind of go down, just a brief list that I kind of collected, but Cyberpunk's event that was scheduled for, I think, the 11th, June 11th, which that's actually this upcoming week. They pushed that back to June 25th. The PC Gaming Show was delayed. The Guerrilla Collective Show was delayed. I think theirs is going to actually be this weekend, Saturday the 13th, which the Guerrilla Collective is just an indie showcase. It's part of Kinda Funny. They've started doing a Kinda Funny showcase, which is a lot more of like indie, smaller titles that just needed a place to go. They partnered with the Guerrilla Collective to kind of do an indie showcase in place of E3. So anyway, basically just everything got pushed back a week, and I'm sure there are other shows that I just didn't find, that have postponed and all this sort of stuff. But anyway, just to kind of my take on it, and Steven, I'm interested to hear your take, but for me personally, as excited as I am for all of this news, I think it was probably the right call. Number one, because yes, these conversations that are happening across the nation and in homes and in streets, these are important conversations that need to be had, and that the message doesn't need to be distracted from. You know what I mean? But beyond that, how horrible would it be if that's what this happened? The first time we really saw the PS5 was around this. You know what I mean? And it's 2020. There's probably going to be a volcano erupting, when the next time they try to do a reveal event. There's just no good time in 2020 to do a reveal. But right. It would be difficult, I think, to celebrate at a time like this. But anyway, Steven, what are your just kind of initial thoughts? And you can go into what you kind of theorized a little bit with Sony, but... I
mean, my first reaction when Sony did what they did, because I don't do Twitter, it's a waste of time, in my opinion, and it just makes people who use it more angry. And so when Brody linked us that it got pushed, they said in a very vague statement, there are more important voices to be heard right now.
Right.
They said nothing about Black Lives Matter or George Floyd or anything like that.
They didn't pick any
And so-
sides. They just, which I think they have come out and made a
They
clearer
have.
statement. But yeah,
They have, but that's why my initial thought was not, oh, this is an authentic thing. It felt that my initial gut reaction, because this was the first I had seen of a company doing something like this, and then of course everyone did it, because if you don't, you're a racist at this point, according to the internet.
Right.
But when they put that, my thought was, this kind of seems like a save our ass move a little bit. To which they obviously posted later on a definitive, this is the stance we take. So there's not really as much credence to this. But my initial thought was, what if... So to backtrack a little bit, remember when Jeremy and I played Torchlight? We were going to play Payday 2. And that was right when all of the protests and riots started. And I said, we had the game open. And I said to Jeremy, I was like, Jeremy, this isn't a good idea right now. Because this is a game that's literally about killing cops. And that's literally all it is. So maybe we should play something else. And he was like, that's a really good idea. Let's play something else. So we shifted to Torchlight.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So my thought was, what if something similar was happening at PlayStation, to where they realized that there is a really touchy subject in the world right now, and what if one of their headline games, or their headline game they were going to reveal, was a little bit too close to that subject, so they had to buy some time.
Right.
Because they didn't give a date for when the new one was initially.
Well, yeah. Have they given a new date?
I thought they... Well, I'm probably thinking of somebody else.
Well, that was something I was going to comment. It's interesting because everyone else who's followed suit gave a new date. Sony, to my knowledge, and I'm going to turn around and do a search real quick, but I don't think they've given a date. So everyone else has pretty much said, "Oh, hey, we're just going to push a week, basically." But
so to me, my thought was, what if this is just Sony acknowledging that now is the wrong time for one of their titles that they were going to show? And so my first thought, of course, went to, what if they were going to announce Grand Theft Auto 6? Because we all know it's coming. We all know they're working on it. And this isn't me turning all this civil unrest and everything. This isn't me being like, oh, this is just them trying to cover up for Grand Theft Auto. I don't care about Grand Theft Auto. Right. I'm saying this because it's literally just like, again, I went to college for marketing and public relations, and it reeked of a preventive move,
right,
not reactive. And so I was just kind of like, what if this? So that was pretty much all I thought. And then, of course, like, not 15 minutes later, well, no, it was like an hour or two later, Facebook starts blowing up with everyone being like, hey, we canceled this thing. Internet's canceled for the week. So do I think that that's the case? Not necessarily, but I just thought it was interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I think there is some credence to that. You know, it could be as simple as, you know, when we were playing Last of Us this weekend, you know, the very opening scenes where the breakout, you know, the pandemic begins, there were several shots that you and I both were just like, this is hitting a little different, because, you know, some of these images of just, you know, of riots, and then also just people panicking from a pandemic, just felt a lot more real in 2020 than it did, you know, in 2013 or whenever the Last of Us first came out. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, any game could look a little different with this context in mind. So anyway, I think all in all, it was the right call to do this and to postpone and to let these other voices be heard and let these other discussions be had. So I'm glad that this happened, but I obviously am disappointed that we didn't get to learn about any of these games, or not even that. We just have to wait a little bit longer, you know. So hopefully they'll announce a new date soon that we can hear about. But anyway, just very exciting. And another thing, the last thing I'll say to kind of close this topic is, be kind to one another. That's something we always say here. Be nice, love one another. And another thing too, don't the part of this whole issue is that people judge one another and we make assumptions about one another based on, if we're male or female or black or white or whatever. Don't make assumptions and lump people into one group. Really get to know people and get to know somebody who's different than you. Don't make assumptions that somebody stands one way or the other just because they haven't said anything. Or on the flip side of that, if they have said something just to kind of cover themselves, they may not truly believe that. So, just don't judge somebody before you've really gotten to know them or talk to them or, that sort of thing. But anyway, be kind to one another, guys. Love each other. All right, we're going to move on.
I will say something just because I feel like I need to. Mm-hmm. Obviously, what's happening to the black community is an awful thing. Racism mm-hmm. is an awful thing. There is no room for it there's just no room for it. Mm-hmm. But what I've seen from both sides is really troubling. Mm-hmm. Because you've got, on one corner, you've got people who are very clearly racist individuals towards the black community, and they don't see a problem with what's going on, and they try to defend actions from certain police officers, and that's just, no. That's wrong. It's wrong. But on the other hand, you've got another group of people who are just saying their police brutality exists, so all police are the devil.
Right.
And what you're essentially doing is you're just trading one hate for another. Mm-hmm. And there's no room in the world for that either. Mm-hmm. Everyone, there is bad out there in the world. Wherever you go, it's just humankind. But there's much more good than there is evil if you look for it. The problem is people are only talking about the bad things, and it's just, I fear that it's going to just create more and more unrest to where you have this large group of people that are just like, and racism, but you don't end hate. And what really needs to end is hate. So
yeah,
I just can't escape just every individuals from every corner of this whole thing just making a complete ass of themselves and losing the point.
Right.
And I'm over it.
Yeah.
It's gotten to the point to where I'm close to just, I would delete Facebook, at least temporarily, if it wasn't my job.
Right. Right.
I really wish I could.
Yeah.
But
well, and that's what I mean by, don't lump people into.
Yeah.
Don't, one person's action doesn't define an entire group of people. So like I said, just don't make assumptions about people, get to know somebody different than you, be kind to one another.
And that's, to me, that's how racism ends. Mm-hmm. It's not, we will learn to love this people group. It's, we will learn to love everybody. We will learn to not judge everybody or assume something of everybody. And what's happening is, and I'm just using like the police as an example. And I'm not your grandmother on Facebook trying to defend the actions of a cop that hit a guy. That's not what I'm doing right now. But what I am saying is that when you start saying the cops are bad, all cops are bad, then you are guilty of the very thing that you were claiming that you're trying to stop, which is the systemic racism of black people are bad, black people are bad. which obviously is not true.
Right.
So don't fall into the trap of just being so hot-headed and heated about this one thing that you're guilty of the very sin that you're trying to end. Because it's not about just ending racism. It's ending hate, period. That's what needs to go away.
Well said. All right, let's move on. We got a little too deep into that than I wanted to, so, but I appreciate that. That's good conversation. So, all right, moving on. Speaking of sins that need to be cleansed, let's talk about Destiny 2. That's a horrible transition. Destiny 2.
Speaking of hate, let's talk Destiny 2.
Speaking of hate, let's talk about Destiny 2. So Destiny 2 had its first live event ever in the game this past weekend. It happened at I think it was Saturday at 1 o'clock. And basically, Steven, if you don't know, I have not been playing this season of Destiny 2, but I've been keeping my eye on it just to kind of make sure like it's something that I do want to take part in happening. This season, right. Basically the plot line of the season was that the Cabal basically took the Almighty ship, which was was it a Planet Eater ship? It was just kind of a...
That was Gaul's ship, right?
It was Gaul's ship, yeah.
Yeah, it literally destroyed systems.
Yeah.
Not just planets.
Yeah. It was powered by a sun, wasn't it, or something like that?
It did consume... No, because the Leviathan was the Planet Eater.
Right,
and the Almighty consumed something. Because you have that mission where you're on it, and it's like consuming planets or something. I don't know.
Anyway, it's a big ship, okay? It's a big ship
ship that destroys systems.
Yeah, it's been floating in space since the beginning of Destiny 2, where you stopped the Cabal from basically taking over the Traveler. Anyway, it's been sitting up there since then. So the Cabal basically in a last act basically pushed it towards the tower. So the Almighty was on a collision course with the tower. And so all season long we've been powering up Rasputin, which is this computer AI system that basically is... it's like a war machine, basically. It just has a lot of really powerful rockets and all this other stuff. Anyway, basically we've been powering up Rasputin all season long. And so Saturday at 1 o'clock was the culmination of all of that prep. So it started at 1. This event lasted an hour and a half, Steven, and I'll circle back around to that because that's kind of everyone's biggest complaint. But it was an hour and a half long event. And all that, so what happened was everyone got to witness the Almighty, which you could see from the tower, and it was slowly getting closer. And as you watched it, just hundreds of missiles started to slowly get closer and closer to it. And then there's a big flash, and when it comes back, you can see the Almighty, and it's in pieces. And it's slowly falling. And so bits of debris start to hit the tower, but there's only one place that I think was permanently damaged. And it really just isn't a cosmetic thing. It has no real, like it didn't knock out the Eververse store or anything like that. Or it didn't knock Zavala off
That's a shame.
I know, right? Or it didn't knock Zavala off of his post, you know, like.
It didn't kill Raoul the Cryptarch?
Oh my God, what an opportunity.
Man, if it had killed him.
What an opportunity to get rid of
waste. Such waste.
Okay, I wasn't mad, but now I'm mad. No, anyway.
Yeah.
So anyway, the debris hits the tower. There's one thing that really changed, but anyway, debris hit, and the Almighty lands in the mountains somewhere way beyond the back half of the tower. So really, really interesting. But that took an hour and a half to happen. So like you can go find, if you go on social media now, there are tons of time lapses of the event. And I just can't imagine watching this in real time. Because even like at double time speed, or people are probably doing quadruple speed to get it down to like a 2-minute thing that you can watch. But I mean, it even sped up, it is such a slow process to watch, which I understand. It's like we're watching something that's happening, you know, just right in orbit. You know, I mean, so I understand that realistically something like that would take probably slower. But man,
realistically, if the Almighty landed on Earth, Earth would cease to exist.
That's true too. That's true too. Anyway, so that's been everyone's biggest complaint, right? Is that it took too long, and then really there was nothing to do. Like all that really happened was people watched this happen. There wasn't like, okay, everybody, on 3, we're gonna hit this button, and that's gonna send the missiles. Like none of that happened. People just witnessed it. There wasn't like a trailer or some sort of. I'm curious if whatever the next season is, which I don't think this is right, because based on the hints we've seen, I don't think it's going this direction. But I do wonder what are the consequences of what did land in the mountains. Like is that a hint for something coming? I don't know if it's going to be season 5 or what. But anyway, nothing happened out of the whole thing. So just kind of interesting. I certainly, you know, we hear about Fortnite doing these sort of events all the time. And I think it would be great for Destiny to do more of these. I just hope they learn from this and say, okay, we've got to make this a little bit more engaging and quicker. But Steven, what are your thoughts?
I think live events are the stupidest thing. I hate them. They are such a gimmick, and it's just more excuse for games to be like, ooh, come help our numbers look good by logging on at this exact time. And nothing happens. Nothing ever really happens.
Right.
I mean, what's the advantage of being on Fortnite when they drop a trailer for Star Wars? Nothing.
Well,
it's on YouTube 5 seconds later.
You got lightsabers.
Oh, ooh, well, guess what? They're already in Fortnite. Like, that's already a thing, I thought.
It is now. Now it's like I think it's a pretty regular thing that lightsabers are out, but I don't think they're a constant mode. I think that's like a special period where you can have lightsabers, but I don't play Fortnite, so I don't know.
It's just a gimmick. It's dumb, and it's one of those things that Fortnite gets on my nerves a lot because it is in my opinion, a blight on the video game industry in a way, to where like it does really well numbers wise. And so what you've effectively got is you've got your new trendsetter in the form of Fortnite, a game which I think does everything to the absolute bare minimum. And the only reason it's doing so well is because it created a mode that literally takes no upkeep, has an audience targeted at 12-year-olds who will play the same thing that YouTubers are playing for an infinite amount of time. Sorry, didn't mean for this to turn into one of those. Basically, Fortnite did nothing to affect its own success. And so now you've got game developers trying to play off of the game that got lucky. To be fair, live events are one of the things that Fortnite did kind of, what's the word I'm looking for?
I mean, they did kind of start it and make it.
They started
good.
It, yeah. But at the same time, like, it's such a superficial just gimmick.
Right.
There's so little value in what that kind of thing can bring to games. And it's probably not something to like, and I'm not mad about it. I'm just annoyed by it because Destiny already has, like, I mean, they did the battle pass system, which I hate battle passes, which that came likely from Fortnite. Now they're doing live events. And so it's just like, it doesn't need it. It doesn't need it. It really doesn't. And you've got people, like, your primary audience for Destiny, do you know who those people are? People that work all the time. Sure you've got people that don't work on Saturdays. That's probably a large number of them. But you do have, like, most of your Destiny audience is adults. Right. That either have a full-time job or have kids.
That was...
There's no place for live events on Destiny.
Because we were streaming Last of Us during this, so I did not get to witness it. But reading, articles from people who did write it, one of these guys, he was like, "Yeah, I was in a party with, a full fire team, and we were just chatting, and he said one of the guys that he was with, his wife kept coming up and being like, okay, but seriously, how much longer is this gonna take? Like, we've got to go do something, whatever. So yeah, it definitely was a little bit, hard for it to be that long. But I disagree with you a little bit.
People have enough distractions in their lives that like are really important.
Right. Mm-hmm.
The last thing they need is a game being like, hey, I already asked so much of your time, but with the ability of you being able to choose when that time is. Mm-hmm. So here, come use more of your time on me, but now I get to pick what time you come.
Well, I think
like that just.
I think the lesson from it is that if you're gonna require time, make it worthwhile. And I understand you think, your kind of opinion is that live events don't really benefit much, but I do think if this was something that could have happened in like 10 or 15 minutes, it would have been really cool to have been there when that happened. Especially if I was as into Destiny 2 right now as I was like when Forsaken started up. I think being able to say like, oh yeah, I was there for that or that. It's a lot like concerts, I don't like to go to concerts personally. But somebody who, but of course I love all types of music and artists and stuff like that. But like going to see something live just doesn't sound fun to me personally, because I just don't like being that in a big crowd. And I have trouble hearing, especially when things are so loud. So there's just all sorts of things like that. But I mean, I would think most people who go to concerts go there because it's like, I got to see them in person. I got to see this happen. I get to experience this. So I do see the benefit of live events. I just, like you're saying, like it has to have some sort of value to being there.
I mean, there's a place for them, but they are and always will be, in my opinion, a gimmick. Mm-hmm. And the fear of a gimmick is always, to me, that it will become just secondhand. Like it'll just become an actual thing. So in moderation, any gimmick can be fine. Mm-hmm. But when games are just doing this all the time and suddenly you are creating this kind of hierarchy of, oh, Division 2 is doing a live event. Oh, like let's say, for example, just for me in Division, since it's a game I actually play, so that there's not the bias of Destiny, or the counter bias of Destiny. If Division was to say something like, there's going to be a live event, we're going to get to see what happens to Aaron Keener or something like that. Granted, we already did, but if it was something like that, if live events start becoming...
The courtroom of Aaron Keener. Watch his
execution. The courtroom of Aaron Keener, sure. Right, something like that. And there's no way for me to be there. You know how much that would piss me off?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And so that just... it's one of those things where it's just like... I don't personally see the overall gain of it. It's like, sure, that could be kind of interesting now and then, but if you're going to start making that a staple of certain games, like games as service games, where someone can't experience it ever if it's already happened, that sucks.
Yeah.
Because we have lives. People have jobs. People have kids. They have obligations. Games are supposed to be escapism, not another thing that can dictate what and when. In my opinion.
Yeah. Fortnite did they got the live reveal, I guess the first reveal of the new Tenet movie trailer.
Yeah.
And that was something, I can't remember if it happened after they announced the Party Royale, which was kind of their separate non-battle island where you can just go have fun and just run around and play. There's no it's not really a competition. It's just an island to go hang out on. I forget if it came before or after that, but now in Party Royale, or probably not now, but when this happened, like for at least a week, you could go to that same spot on the island, and the trailer aired at the top of the hour every hour. Which, like, why would you take the time to go, unless you weren't just already playing Fortnite and already on the party island, why not just go watch it on YouTube? That's an argument to be had. But something like that even I think would be cooler, because like Like, if you told me right now that, hey, we know it doesn't really make sense from a story standpoint, but if you miss Saturday's event, it's going to be happening every day this week at 5 o'clock or whatever. You can watch that moment happen again. Like,
Yeah, that would be better.
I would probably find a time to go do that. So I think it's just something that's still very new, doing live events, especially since, Fortnite kind of started it. Some other groups have done it since. I think it's a medium, it's a gimmick that's still being figured out. So hopefully it'll just improve. But yeah, I definitely hate missing them, know? And so I totally understand. Like, if I had been really into this season, I might have been postponing, or I would have been like, all right, Steven, look, you got to play Last of Us right now because I got to go be in this thing for Destiny. So
I just have a problem when a game tries to tell me, like, I have enough crap that I have to juggle in my life.
Oh, yeah.
I have enough enough trouble balancing. And so when my primary form of escapism or relaxation starts having expectations of me as well,
Yeah.
that's a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of expectations, we now have a release date for the new DLC for, I almost said Spider-Man Sword and Shield, Pokemon Sword and Shield. The Isle of Armor, which is the first content pack in the expansion pass, is coming now on June 17th, so very close. They released they released a trailer, which, funnily enough, it talked about both of the expansions, not just Isle of Armor, which I was kind of expecting it to focus on Isle of Armor, and then we'll hear more about the next one later. But whatever. They announced, so we got the release date, and then they also introduced 2 new Pokemon from the Reggie family, which I'm still learning a lot about Pokemon because actually Sun and Moon was the first mainline Pokemon game that I've played in a long time. So there's a lot of Pokemon I still don't know. So I'm not sure what the Reggie family is, but they introduced Regieleki, I think, Eleki, which is an electric type, and then Regidrago, which is a dragon type. And they were also introduced along with the Galarian Slowbro, who has his shell is on his arm, so it's like a fist. He's a poison psychic type, and he has a new move called Shell Sidearm, which is unique to his form. So the Slow King evolution will be a part of the next expansion, so we have to wait on that. We got to see a little bit more about the original Legendary Birds Galarian form. So we have Galarian Articuno, who's a psychic and flying type. We have Galarian...
That's awesome.
Isn't that cool? And then Galarian Zapdos, which is a fighting flying type. And then we have Galarian Moltres, who is a dark flying type.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, they look really, really cool. I especially like Galarian Zapdos's look. Kind of looks like an ostrich almost, but if an ostrich looked badass, you know what I mean? So, that's, I'm going
to look up on Google Images, badass ostrich. I'm going to see what happens.
Galarian Zapdos will probably pop up. It's also going to bring Gigantamax forms to the 3 final evolution starters from Sword and Shield. So Rillaboom, Cinderace, and Inteleon. This will, of course, add a new powerful G move to their skill set. You can check out their new forms, yada yada. And then it's also adding in some of the older Pokemon, like I think Arzul is coming, Chansey's coming. I'm sure there's several more that they just didn't even talk about. And then, of course, we got our new legendaries, Kubfu, and Yuri Shifu, and Calyrex. I'm not sure if I'm saying those right. Anyway, a lot of cool stuff. They also showed stuff from the Crown Tundra, which is the next one coming out, but definitely not as much. It was just kind of a little bit more footage. So anyway, I personally am very excited to dive back into Pokemon. I did not play Pokemon as much as I thought I would when Sword and Shield first came out. It really should have been something I dove back into kind of in this lull of games. But anyway, very exciting. Steven, did you find a badass ostrich?
I'm gonna do a quick search now. Sorry, I'm working on the review a little bit.
Oh, you're good.
While we do this.
Did you have any other thought? What did you play? Did you even get Sword or Shield?
No.
Okay. Yeah.
How do you spell ostrich? Got it.
Okay. I was about to start phonetically.
That's terrible. The first results for ostrich on Google are ostrich skin boots, ostrich egg, ostrich skin handbag, and ostrich lounge chair.
Oh my god.
Why is no one looking up for ostriches outside of things they can kill them to become?
That's a problem. That's a problem in our society, Steven. We just look in what we can get out of things.
There's an ostrich little cartoon, an ostrich wearing a fedora and sunglasses with a minigun on its back. There's a picture of Wonder Woman for some reason. Some of these are ostriches with teeth.
That's scary.
Yeah. No Pokemon. Sorry.
Oh well. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this episode of Chortle Cast. We do hope you've enjoyed it. If you did, there's a couple things you can do to help us out. Number one, if you're on YouTube, you're already at chortlegames.com. You can like, share, leave us a comment, and of course subscribe if you want to see more of our stuff. If you're watching on Facebook, you are watching at Chortle Games on Facebook. You can also find us on Twitter and Twitch. Twitter is also at Chortle Games. And then Twitch is twitch.tv/chortle_games. So we do all our live streams there. The podcast right now is only going to YouTube and Facebook, so we appreciate you watching on those platforms. But if you want to see us when we live stream, we're on all those other places as well, all at the same time, usually. So that's pretty fun. Anyway, we've got a great, like I said, week. This isn't the only thing we do. I started to get back into the intro there a little bit. This isn't the only thing we do. We live stream normally on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. We typically try to get together, Steven and I, and do something on Thursday, and then Friday and Saturday we typically divide up to just be some solo things and do whatever we want to do. So look forward to those streams later this week. And then, of course, we just finished Last of Us. So if you want to go rewatch that live stream, there's some pretty great moments in there. Especially, I almost said part 5, but it's actually part 3. But like towards the final 2 hours or so, there's a pretty hilarious.
So I just
glitch.
looked for it.
Yeah.
I just looked for it. I did find it. Right now, part 3 is only listed as 2 hours long. Which is obviously not correct.
Right.
But if it's the part 3 version that is an hour and 59 minutes and 59 seconds, go to 40 minutes and 19 seconds for a good laugh. You're welcome.
It's pretty good. It's pretty great. But anyway, you can go back and watch that. Give yourself a little refresher. We will be working on the forward compatible review of that, and that will come out before the game comes out. So probably not this week, but maybe next week. So anyway, that's it for this week. Steven, thanks for being here. Thanks for your wonderful insights. And we will see you guys next time. Peace.
Bye.